Let's start, though, with the fact that later this morning indeed, UKIP leader Nigel Farage will make a major speech on how the No campaign can win the forthcoming EU referendum. And here to give us a little idea of what we'll hear later this morning, Nigel Farage, UKIP leader, is in the studio with me. Good morning, Mr Farage. What are you going to say, sir, in a couple of hours?
I'm going to say that the Prime Minister is going to give us a referendum because he won a majority. It's been a bit of a shock to both sides that this referendum that I've spent 20 years talking about is actually going to happen. The Yes campaign are in full throttle. Every single week we get Tony Blair, Ken Clarke, the Vice-Chancellors of British universities, even President Obama saying Britain must vote to stay in. And the No campaign appear to be paralysed at the moment because many of those in the Conservative and Labour parties who define themselves as Eurosceptics are saying, well, let's just wait and see. Let's see what the Prime Minister renegotiates. And the renegotiation is the key to this because the Prime Minister has said he will put a better deal to the country. Now, all he's asking about, really, is migrant benefits and perhaps the repatriation of a few workers' rights. And my speech today, Nick, coincides with a big survey of 5,000 people, which shows what they care about, the British public care about in this renegotiation, is open borders and can we control our borders, which, given what's going on in Calais, is hardly surprising. They care about Parliament being supreme. Can we have a veto over European law? And they also care about the fact that it costs us over 50 million quid a day to be a member. And so what I'm saying is this. In the absence of anybody else, we will now, as UKIP, take the lead on the ground and we will go out from the first week in September on the biggest outreach campaign our party's ever attempted, literally hundreds of public meetings up and down the country between now and the referendum. And I believe that if we talk about the things that people care about, if we expose the fact that the renegotiation is modest, to say the least, then and only then can the no side win.
I want to get your views on Calais in just a moment, Mr Farage. To those who say this could be the defining moment of your political career, this referendum, how accurate would that be?
100%.
Is this the moment you've been waiting for, Nigel?
Nick, I used to be normal. I had a job. I worked in London.
That's stretching it.
Well, I know, okay. I grant you that.
Close to.
That's slightly exaggerated.
Close to normal.
No. I was in commercial life with a young family, playing golf at weekends, and I got into politics because of this European question. I thought it was wrong that Westminster should give away what I see basically as our birthright. So I've wanted for over 20 years for us to have a referendum. I don't think without the growth of UKIP this referendum could have happened. And I am desperate for the British public to understand the truth. Namely, you don't need to be in the EU to trade, to buy and sell goods from each other, and that actually in a modern global economy we'd be far better suited standing on our own 2 feet. Either way, it's up to the people, but I cannot let this, and UKIP cannot let this campaign go by default, because if we say wait and see what the Prime Minister comes back with, given how modest his demands are, we've basically given him a 13-mile start in a marathon race.
But won't he and the others be able to say, well, I don't know what Nigel and all these others are talking about, we're going to get marvellous concessions. They keep saying, let us come back from Europe with whatever. Doesn't that rather stymie you?
Well, if they come back with IOUs, are we going to believe them? Because after all, don't forget, the Chancellor had told us no more British money would be needed to bail out Greece, and yet we found the other week we were in for nearly another billion. The only way you can change the relationship with Europe is by treaty change, fundamental treaty change, and that notion has been vetoed by 27 other heads of state. So if Mr Cameron is going to get a miraculous renegotiation, he's going to have to start asking for it, and unless people like us put salt on his tail, it won't even be on the agenda.
You're going to lead the No campaign?
I know, I'm going to lead the ground campaign in this country.
Explain what that means, Nigel.
What it means is this. UKIP is the only Eurosceptic organisation that is actually organised on the ground. We've got over 300 branches, nearly 50,000 members. We are equipped from Land's End to John O'Groats to actually go out and engage the public. Invite them to come along to public forums, put leaflets through their doors, put posters up on fences. That's the part of the campaign that I will lead. Overall, there are 2 different groups bidding for the official No designation. One, a group of businessmen, and another, a group of backbench MPs. And that remains to be seen. There is no way that UKIP will be the official No campaign, but UKIP has a vital part to play in the overall campaign, particularly on the ground.
I don't know if you've had sight of the Times yet, Nigel Farage. Eurosceptics feud over no vote is the headline, and it talks about deep divisions between the Eurosceptics emerging between those two organisations, or two groups, I should say, that you've just mentioned. How accurate is that story?
Well, I actually think competition's rather healthy. The fact there are
there are those divisions.
Well, there are 2 completely different philosophies being put on the table. One is is a group of very knowledgeable, very experienced Westminster-based researchers with the support of 7 or 8 backbench MPs, and the other is a businessman called Aaron Banks, who is inexperienced in politics, but very experienced at being successful in business. And they are bidding, both of them are bidding, to get the official no designation. I'm not taking sides on this. I actually think the fact there is competition within the no camp is not an unhealthy thing.
Which would be more effective?
Both of those groups will come to the UKIP conference and they will address our conference, answer questions, and we will then as a party opt to back one side or the other. Privately, who knows? Maybe they can come together. Let's see.
You'd like to see that? You're trying to engineer that?
Well, at this stage, the fact you've got 2 people bidding is not unhealthy. But at some point, I mean, what would be a disaster is if one of the groups that doesn't get the designation packed up their bags and went home. That's the last thing we want. So at some point, there has to be a coming together of these two. But they are different philosophies. You know, one is talking about making the Westminster argument. The other is an attempt to bring in people from outside the world of politics.
What's happened at Calais, Nigel Farage?
Well,
it's what should happen now at Calais?
That's a different question. I mean, what has been happening at Calais now for a very long time, anyone that lives in the centre of Kent could tell you, just the fact that it's been on the front pages the last few days, it's been there forever.
The traffic jam's probably reached your door by now. They're getting towards Chislehurst, I think, aren't they?
20 miles of lorry queues on both sides of the motorway. I mean, it's absolutely horrendous. The Prime Minister this morning has, for the first time, sounded tough on this issue. Let's hope he means it. What we're told is that 150 illegal immigrants every single night are now getting through the tunnel and getting in to Kent. What we know is your chances at the moment as an illegal immigrant of being caught in Britain are very limited. What we also know is if you are caught, there's only a 1 in 4 chance you'll ever get sent back. Now, we've had people from Boris Johnson to Nick Clegg, both favourites of yours on this station.
You're all favourites, all of you who come and see me. I treat you all as children. Well, I don't have a favourite among you all.
Thank you, Nick. What can I say?
Damn Nick Clegg.
But it's interesting. Those two very senior public figures have both within the last few years said we should give amnesties for all illegal immigrants. If that is the mood music that is coming out of London, is it any wonder people are desperate to get to this country? I think we have to check cars and lorries coming into Britain.
How much delay would that?
Well, the trouble is this, you see, we put all our eggs in one basket. All our freight, transport, holidaymakers, everything now goes on the Dover-Calais route. And so when there is a problem, even a strike, for example.
See. So come to Ramsgate.
So use Ramsgate, use Folkestone. Let's diversify some of this. And I think there's no doubt about one thing, that the border agency are going to need a lot more resources and a lot more staff. Because, I mean, don't forget, we're not just talking here about numbers. We're not just talking here about pressure on social services. We're also talking about when Islamic State say they will use the tide of migrants across the Mediterranean to flood our continent with their own jihadists. We ought to take that seriously.
Before I let you go, because I know you have to make that speech, every campaign needs a figurehead. You seem to be that you want to operate the ground force, if you will.
Yeah.
So what about Kate Hoey? Who's going to head it all up?
Well, I don't know. I mean, look,
Kate Hoey?
Look, whoever gets the official designation...
You could work with Kate Hoey.
I'm prepared to work with anybody. And any divisions amongst Eurosceptic politicians are people saying slightly derogatory things about me and not the other way round. My message to them is stop bitching and moaning, get up off your backsides and come and give us a hand. I've no idea who will lead this. What matters more at this stage is we get a campaign off the ground.
And lastly, to those because I haven't seen you or spoken to you at length since the general election, to the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, who you managed to tempt back to the ballot box in May, people who thought, this system doesn't work for me, it's all, look, you don't get what you vote for. You actually brought many of them back, and as we all know, the way the system is, but you've got to play by the rules. It's like the cricketers blaming the pitch. You got one. It was a shocking night, wasn't it?
Well, it was an extraordinary night. I mean, never before in British democracy have so many been represented by so few. It's an extraordinary... I mean, Can
you tempt them back again? Those blokes and women who've...
One of the things that I've been doing is taking the temperature amongst those voters over the course of the last couple of months. And I wasn't sure what I'd find. Would I find despondency? No, what I found is anger and determination to do it again and to do it on an even bigger scale. And I think you'll find that UKIP vote, those people that turn turned out for us on May the 7th, despite the fact it was a first-past-the-post election, despite the fact there was a big swing back to the Conservatives for fear of that woman north of the border and all the rest of it, I think UKIP as a political party is actually in rock-solid condition.
The energy level coming across from you're looking forward to the fight, I can sense that.
Very much. I've waited for this for 20 years.
Great having you. Thank you very much indeed.
In the next 90 minutes, the 4 candidates fighting to lead Labour are here to answer your questions. Andy Burnham's been depicted as an archetypical flip-flopper. According to some of her colleagues, Liz Kendall is a Tory in disguise. Yvette Cooper...